And a very warm welcome to another episode of Momentum Meets. I'm Alistair Body, Business Development Director here at Momentum Broker Solutions. Today, we're talking about growth and growth without the grind. I'm joined by Ben Fielding, founder of Graphene Insurance up there in the Northwest. Ben spent nearly 20 years in underwriting before leaving without a book, which is a bit different from most, to launch his own brokerage 3 years ago. Together, we're exploring how brokers can build successful businesses ultimately without burning themselves out. So a big thank you, Ben, for joining us today.
It's a pleasure. Glad to be here.
So let's start with something a bit out there, I suppose. What made you think, you know what, I can actually run my own brokerage? I mean, you've been a broker previously, a good few years prior, but what was the moment?
Well, as I said, I took redundancy from a large insurer and spent some time off with the family, and then realised that I didn't really want to go back to a standard employed environment. But at the same time, there was a lot of consolidation in the market in terms of insurance brokers. And speaking to friends and things like that, I was realising that a lot of people weren't getting any knowledge in the SME mid-market space. I felt like I had a raft of knowledge and I could bring it to that space. And I've fortunately managed to convince you to support me doing that.
Fantastic. I mean, people usually, when they start up, have a book of clients behind them. I mean, you didn't have that when you started. I mean, that's a bold step. I mean, what made you think, well, without being rude, that you can make that work?
Bluntly, back my ability a bit. Just, I felt like I had an ability to communicate, and I felt like I had an ability to create a differential between myself and other brokers in the space that we operate in. And I mean, let's not lie, my wife gave me a certain timescale to make this work, but we did. And I felt that I could add value. And as a side point, as someone who is based in Manchester but not from Manchester and only lived here recently, I wanted to really become within a part of like a community and in the local area and have contacts in the local area, which I didn't do. All my contacts were in purely within the city centre, within the insurance world.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. And look, to do this, you had to find a principal to partner up with. How easy was it to find someone that, I suppose, matched your ambitions and ultimately was there to give you the support that you needed?
Well, I mean, I was referred to yourselves by a couple of other ARs that I knew, and upon meeting yourself and understanding the concept of being allowed to operate more as a pure account exec and less of an account exec and a broker and that kind of element, I felt that enabled me to get the best start and keep going.
And financially, were you ready to start up, or was it a now or never?
Financially, we were in a reasonable place. I was just had taken redundancy. Slightly more depressingly, my father had just passed as well, and that meant there was a pot of money that I could invest in ourselves to do this.
And if you take away the financial side of things, obviously you were, as you say, made redundant. Now or never was, I suppose, did it come to the point of if you don't do it now, it's never going to happen, was it?
A bit, yeah. One of the other key factors generally was the passing of my father. He spent his life in big corporate, he ran big organisations, but he didn't really have any relationship with kids and family because he was always too busy working. And it was very difficult to try and recover that in later life, and then he was ill. I had a very young family at the time, and I didn't want to be in that position. In my previous role, I spent a lot of my life on the M62, and I wanted to be in a position where not only could I build a business for myself, hopefully the long-term aim is to create some wealth for my children. in terms of helping them with housing and things like that. But also it meant that I can be flexible and around the children more than I could be when I was employed.
Yeah. Was there ever a point in those early days which you said to yourself, or you and your partner, your other half, said, it's time to give up, or were you a
Well,
bit more resolute than that?
yeah, it was so. I was quite fortunate because I started, and my father-in-law's old business came up for renewal, so that was our first client. So I had a warmed introduction into that business, and we won that, and that was a reasonable size. And very quickly, I got introduced to two more businesses of a similar size, but I didn't get either of them. So it went from being this is all right, this, to, right, okay. So those first couple of months where it was just relentless networking and trying to build leads and connections, and there were some days which felt very long. I mean, as I said, there was a pot of money, so there was never a drastic point. But I remember at one point, we had a conversation. I think that was it. I'd been offered a job. I'd been offered a job to go back into underwriting, and it was quite well paid. And my wife and I had a conversation, and her preferred position would have been for me to go back into that role. However, I wanted to push this through and keep going.
And what was the point? One point where you realised this was a success?
The moment I didn't have to discuss how much money I was putting into the joint bank account, it just went in.
It just went in.
So
that's a fabulous moment. How many months in was that, if you don't mind me asking?
9.
That's fabulous. That's really, really good. Well, look, before we go any further, this feels like a very good moment to pause. If you're watching this on YouTube, you've just heard the start of Ben's journey, leaving a long underwriting career with a bit of a little sprinkling of broking previously. But he started Graphene with no book, navigating those really first tough decisions around cash flow, focus, and time. Head over and listen to the full episode of this episode on Momentum Meets wherever you get your podcasts.